My dear friends and fellow students on the path, Goldsmith, would often begin by turning our attention away from the clamor of the world and inward, toward the sanctuary of our own being. He would not address us as a crowd, but as individual consciousnesses ready to receive a sacred impartation. So, I invite you now to quiet the mind, to set aside the day's burdens, and to join me in a conscious stillness. For we are not here merely to discuss a historical quotation, but to entertain a living truth. We have all read the verse. We have heard the words. Perhaps so often they have lost their shocking, their revolutionary power. In the 10th chapter of John, facing accusation and disbelief, Jesus made a statement that has echoed through the ages, a statement that orthodoxy has often struggled to explain away. He said, "Is it not written in your law?" I said, "Ye gods." What could he possibly have meant? Was this a metaphor, a misstatement? Or was it the most profound and literal revelation of your own identity and mine? The world sees a man of flesh and blood, subject to its laws of lack, fear, and sin. But the Christ, the universal truth embodied in Jesus, saw something else entirely. He saw the perfect, spiritual identity of every individual, the Son of God, one with the Father. Tonight, we will venture beyond the theological debate and into the actual experience. We will explore what changes, not on the surface of your life, but at the very core of your being, when this truth ceases to be a comforting idea and becomes your demonstrated consciousness. What happens inside you when you finally grasp, when you know, why he said, "You are gods"? And so, my friends, as we abide in this silence together, while the invitation stands, this is not a truth to be believed, but a reality to be lived and embodied. The journey from the concept to the concrete demonstration of your divine sonship is the only journey that ultimately matters. If this impartation has stirred something within you, if you feel a resonance with this eternal truth, I invite you to engage with it further. Like this video to signal your inner readiness to explore this path. In the comments below, do not simply write your thoughts, but share the as symbolic number 10 heads, representing the 10th chapter of John, where this eternal truth was declared, to show that you are part of a community dedicated to this conscious awakening. What most importantly, subscribe and join me as we continue to go deeper beyond the veil of words into the very heart of the infinite invisible. For the journey inward awaits, of course. Here is the expansion of your first keynote, continuing seamlessly from the introduction and written in a flowing, human style. Indeed, the journey from the concept to the concrete demonstration of your divine sonship is the only journey that ultimately matters. And it begins precisely here with our first keynote, transcending the literal for the mystical. You see, the human mind, the intellect, is a magnificent instrument, but it is not the instrument for this work. The intellect operates on the plane of the literal. It reads the words, "Ye gods," and immediately begins to dissect them. It asks historical questions, theological questions. It compares doctrines and debates semantics. It seeks to fit this infinite truth into a finite, manageable box. And in doing so, it completely misses the point, because it is trying to understand a spiritual reality with a material sense. This is why so many stumble at this verse. They either cling to a literal, humanistic interpretation that inflates the personal ego, a sense of, "I am a god, with all my personal desires and ambitions," which is a profound and dangerous misreading. Or they reject it outright as blasphemy, because their literal mind cannot reconcile the man they see in the mirror with the God Jesus is pointing to. Both reactions are failures of the same order. They are attempts to comprehend the ocean by studying a single drop of water. The truth that Jesus was imparting is not of the world of form. It is not subject to the laws of the intellect any more than a symphony can be understood by analyzing the paper of the sheet music. The mystical meaning, which Goldsmith dedicated his life to unveiling, calls us to a different faculty altogether. It calls us to the faculty of spiritual discernment, to the Christ consciousness within. The mystical approach does not ask, "What does this mean?" but rather, "What is this pointing to?" It is an invitation to move from the outer court of words and symbols into the holy of holies of direct, unmediated experience. When Jesus said, "Ye are gods," he was not making a statement about the human personality named Peter or James or Mary. He was not addressing the you that has a history, a bank account, and a set of personal problems. He was speaking to the innermost core of their being, to the I am that is prior to all form, to the Christ of individual you and me. This is the great transition, the pivotal shift in consciousness. To grasp this truth is to stop trying to become a God through effort or belief, and to begin the silent, patient work of realizing what you already and eternally are. It is to turn the attention completely away from the outer evidence of a life lived as a separate, struggling self, and to abide in the unshakable conviction of your oneness with the Father. The literal mind sees a sick body and believes in sickness. The mystical consciousness, even from its first faint glimmer, knows that regardless of the appearance, its true identity is untouched, whole and perfect, a state of being that Joel often referred to as the seamless garment of Christ. This is not a philosophy to be adopted, but a new level of awareness to be inhabited. It requires a surrendering of the old way of seeing, a letting go of the need for intellectual proof, and a willingness to accept this truth on faith until such a time as it becomes your demonstrated reality. Of course, here is the expansion of your second keynote, flowing directly from the first and crafted with a resonant, empowering tone. This surrendering of the old way of seeing is not a loss, but the greatest liberation, for it initiates the most profound shift possible, the shifting of identity from the human to the spiritual. For so long, we have been taught to identify with the story of our past, our struggles, our achievements, and our failures. We have been taught to believe that this collection of experiences, this personality, is who we are. We say, "I am a woman who has been hurt. I am a mother. I am a seeker. I am tired," or "I am strong." And while these roles and feelings are part of our human experience, they are not the truth of our being. They are the costume, not the actor, the wave, not the ocean. To grasp the power of "you are gods" is to realize that every single one of these human labels, whether we perceive them as good or bad, is a limitation placed upon the infinite. This is the sacred knowledge that has been waiting to be remembered within you. It is the truth that the Divine Mother, the feminine aspect of God, has been whispering to your soul since the moment you were conceived in spirit. You are not a flawed human being trying to become spiritual. You are already a perfect, complete spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Your true self, the I am that you are, was never born and will never die. It does not age, it does not sicken, it does not know lack or fear. It is the very substance of love, the living expression of intelligence, the radiant activity of harmony itself. When you begin to identify with this truth, something miraculous happens within you. The burdens you have carried for a lifetime, the need to prove your worth, the fear of not being enough, the ache of loneliness, begin to lose their power over you, not because you have fought them, but because you have discovered they never truly belonged to you in the first place. They were shadows cast by the belief that you were separate from your source. Imagine the peace, the profound and unshakable serenity of knowing that the core of your being is untouched by any storm the world can conjure. This is your divine inheritance. This is the godhood that Jesus revealed, not a license for ego, but the realization of your eternal unity with the all in all. It is the understanding that the same life that animates the stars, that paints the sunrise, and that guides the seasons, is the very life that is breathing you right now. You are not a separate drop seeking the ocean. You are the ocean expressing itself as a drop. This is the foundation of your true power, a power that is not about control over others, but about sovereignty over your own consciousness. It is a gentle, nurturing, and fiercely creative power that flows from the inside out, healing your body, harmonizing your relationships, and illuminating your path, not because you are forcing change, but because you are aligning with the perfection of what you have always been. This is the sacred feminine principle in action, the power of being, not forcing, of allowing, not striving. It is the deep, intuitive knowing that your very presence is a blessing to this world, because God is being you, of course. Here is the expansion of your second keynote, flowing directly from the first and crafted to connect this spiritual principle to the journey of life. This surrendering of the old way of seeing is not a loss, but the greatest liberation, for it initiates the most profound shift possible, the shifting of identity from the human to the spiritual. We have spent a lifetime, perhaps many lifetimes, carefully constructing an identity from the raw materials provided by the world. We have assembled a self from our accomplishments and our failures, from the names we were given and the roles we were assigned. We have believed, with every fiber of our being, that this collection of memories, desires, and scars is the sum total of who we are. We have worn this identity like a well-fitted garment, never suspecting it was a costume all along. To live from this human sense of self is to live as a character in a play, believing the script is your own reality, the stage your entire world, and the props your actual possessions. But the revelation, "You are gods," is the director's whisper from the wings, the moment of awakening, where the actor remembers they are not the character. They are the one who possesses the power of awareness, watching the drama unfold. This is the shift. It is not an addition of something new to your human experience. It is a subtraction of everything that is not true. It is peeling away the layers of the onion until you find there is nothing left but pure, essential being, and realizing that this being was there all along, hidden beneath the layers you mistakenly thought were you. The fears that have haunted you, the limitations that have bound you, the longings that have driven you, they all belong to the character, to the human identity formed by a world that has forgotten its source. They have no substance, no reality in the consciousness that knows itself as one with God. This is the truth that has been echoing through the ages, waiting for you to hear it not with your ears, but with your soul. It is the promise that the weight you have carried for so long was never yours to bear. The striving, the proving, the relentless pursuit of validation, it was all based on a case of mistaken identity. You were not a flawed creature trying to earn a distant God's love. You were and are the very expression of that love, momentarily dreaming you were separate. To grasp this is to feel a burden you didn't even know you were carrying fall away from your soul. It is to understand that your true life is not the brief flicker of the human story with its opening and closing acts, but is the eternal, undimmed light of consciousness itself which illuminates the story. This I am that you are does not grow old, does not weaken, and does not die. It is the silent witness behind your aging eyes, the timeless peace beneath your changing emotions, the infinite potential that can never be contained by any chapter of your life, no matter how difficult or joyful. This is the rock upon which you can build an entirely new existence, not by changing the world, but by realizing the world was never your home. Of course. Here is the expansion of your fourth keynote, continuing the flow from the previous point. This yielding, this becoming a transparent window for the divine, marks the inevitable and natural transition from outer worship to inner realization. For centuries, the approach to God has been largely an external one. We have been taught to look upward and outward, to seek in holy places, in sacred texts, and in the words of spiritual teachers for the approval and the presence of a God separate from ourselves. This is the path of devotion, and it has its place as a starting point, much as a child looks to a parent for guidance. But it is only the beginning. To remain forever in this state of outward, looking worship is to remain a child in spiritual understanding, perpetually reaching for a God who seems to be just beyond our grasp. a voice we hear only as a faint echo from a distant mountain. The revolutionary message of the Christ and the very core of the revelation, "You are God's," is that the search is over. The kingdom of God is not low here or low there. It is within you. It is not a destination to be reached, but a reality to be recognized. This is the profound shift from devotion to demonstration, from seeking to knowing. The altar is no longer made of stone in a building you visit once a week. It is the very ground of your own consciousness. The sacred text is no longer only the printed book on your shelf, but the unfolding scroll of your own aware being, where the divine imparts its wisdom in the silent language of intuition and peace. Prayer ceases to be a scheduled event and becomes a continuous, inner posture of listening, an attunement to the divine frequency that is your own native tongue. When you make this transition, your entire spiritual practice is appended. It is no longer about what you do to connect with God, but about what you cease doing that obscures the connection that has always and eternally been here. It is a practice of subtraction, of quieting the frantic demands of the personal mind, of silencing the chorus of fear and desire, to make space for the still, small voice that needs no words. In this inner silence, you are not speaking to God, you are allowing God to be God in you. You are not a servant pleading before a master, you are the very activity of the infinite, individualized. This is where theology becomes experience. You no longer believe in God as a concept, you know God as the very substance of your life, the intelligence of your mind, and the love that animates your heart. The power that was once projected onto an external savior or an external deity is now reclaimed as your own spiritual authority, not of the personal self, but of the indwelling Christ. This is the true meaning of grace, not a reward for good behavior, but the ever-present activity of your own divine reality, waiting only for your conscious recognition to become the substance of your everyday experience. Of course, here is the expansion of your first keynote, written as a continuation of your speech in a human, motivational style. And so, we arrive at our first great step on this path, the step that changes everything, transcending the literal for the mystical. Because, my friends, our minds, as brilliant as they are, were built for a world of form and substance. They are incredible tools for navigating the physical universe, for building, for analyzing, for solving the problems right in front of us. But they were never designed to comprehend the infinite. They are like a beautiful, intricate calculator. You can use it to solve complex equations, but you cannot use it to appreciate a sunset. You cannot use it to feel love. For that, you need a different faculty entirely. And this is where so many of us get stuck. We take a truth as vast and as oceanic as "you are God's," and we try to pour it into the tiny thimble of our intellect. Our logical mind hears this and it immediately rebels. It says, "How can I be a God? Look at my limitations, look at my mistakes, look at all the ways I feel small and powerless." Or, in the other direction, the ego hears it and puffs up with a dangerous kind of pride, thinking, "Finally, I am above it all." Both of these reactions are a complete misunderstanding, because they are both happening in the realm of the personal self, the very identity we must see beyond. The mystical meaning, the one Joel Goldsmith dedicated his life to, is not an intellectual concept to be debated. It is not a theory. It is an experience. It is a knowing that dawns not in the brain, but in the heart of your being. Think of the words of Jesus as a finger pointing at the moon. The literal mind gets utterly fixated on the finger. It analyzes the finger. It argues about the finger. It writes doctrines about the finger. But the mystic, the true student of truth, looks where the finger is pointing. They follow the direction to behold the moon itself, the brilliant, silent, and radiant reality of what you are. This is the great shift. It's moving from trying to understand God to beginning to experience God as the very core of your own life. It's the difference between reading a detailed description of the taste of honey and actually dipping your finger in and tasting its sweetness for yourself. No amount of description can ever replace the direct knowing of that taste, and that is what is being offered to you. This is an invitation to taste and see, to move from being a student of the text to being a living demonstration of the truth within it. It requires a gentle setting aside of the old questions, the how, the why, the when. It asks you to step out of the courtroom of the mind, where everything is judged as right or wrong, possible or impossible, and to step into the sanctuary of your own soul, where a different kind of knowing resides. This is a knowing that comes in the silence, that speaks in the language of peace, that reveals itself as a quiet, unshakable confidence that what you are seeking, you already are. The journey is not one of distance, but of recognition. It's not about building yourself up, but about waking up to the magnificent being that was there all along, before the world told you who you were. Of course. Here is the expansion of your sixth keynote, written as a continuation of your speech in a human, motivational style, and this brings us to the ultimate destination of this journey, the very heart of the revelation, awakening to your native oneness with the Source. This is not about becoming one with God. You cannot become what you already are. This is about realizing, with every fiber of your being, that the separation was never real. It was a dream, a shadow cast by the limited mind. Think of a wave in the ocean. It may have a unique shape, a momentary existence, a name we might give it. It might believe itself to be separate, battling the wind and the other waves. But what is the wave but the ocean itself? Its very substance is ocean water. Its energy is the ocean's energy. The moment the wave awakens to this truth, its entire existence is transformed. It no longer fears crashing upon the shore, for it knows it is simply returning to the vastness of what it has always been. This is the peace that passes all understanding. This is the end of your search. All the striving, the seeking, the feeling that you are not quite whole, not quite complete. It all stems from this single, mistaken belief that you are a separate self, a solitary wave, cut off from the infinite ocean of spirit. But you are God's is the thunderous truth that shatters that illusion. It is the direct affirmation that your I am, the very core of your awareness, is not a creation separate from God, but is the very presence of God individualized as you. There is no gap. There is no space where you end and God begins. This is why the mystics speak of the inner marriage, the divine union. It is the recognition that the love you have been seeking in the world, the strength you have been trying to muster on your own, the intelligence you have been straining to access. It is all already flowing as you. You are not a vessel waiting to be filled by a distant God. You are the activity of God here and now. When you feel compassion, that is not you being compassionate. That is the love of the Father expressing itself through your heart. When you have a moment of profound clarity, that is not your personal intelligence. It is the infinite mind thinking as your own awareness. You are the place where the formless takes form. You are the how God is happening in this world. So what does this mean for your daily life? It means you can finally, truly let go. You can release the unbearable burden of being the author of your own life, the general of your own battle. Your only work, your spiritual practice, is to yield, to get your little self, your personal sense of I, out of the way, and to let the infinite, I am, live its life through you. It is to approach every moment, every challenge, every joy, not as a separate entity, but from this unshakable ground of oneness. You begin to trust a wisdom deeper than your thoughts, to feel a strength greater than your own, and to know a love that will never, ever abandon you, because it is you. This is the secret that sets you free. This is the truth that makes you whole.